Welcome to Academy of International Business 2020. I'm here to talk about a discourse model of internationalization. This paper was written by Len Treviño, myself, Florida Atlantic University, and my co-author, Jonathan Doe of Villanova University. I'll point out that this paper has recently been accepted at Journal of International Business Studies. So Johansen and Valny in 1977 developed a theory that's been widely cited, 15,000 citations. They developed theoretical arguments. However, we argue that they do not fully reflect empirical observations. That was the impetus to our writing this paper. The internationalization process theory lacks explanatory power. Firms do not follow the stages in the prescribed sequence, and models do not inform the initiation of the internationalization process. Finally, the model has been found to be applicable primarily to early stages of internationalization. Why have there been inconsistent findings in IPT? We argue that it was the failure to incorporate underlying dynamics and managerial processes that lead to internationalization decisions. In fact, Johansen and Valny pointed out early on exactly this. They said, because we disregard the decision style of the decision maker himself and, to a certain extent, the specific properties of the various decision situations, our model has only limited predictive value. So what value, added value, does discourse provide to internationalization process theory? A discourse-based view of internationalization complements traditional IPT by filling in what Valny and Johansen 2017 referred to as the black box. So what is discourse? Discourse has been defined as a compilation of interrelated texts or practices that systematically form the objects of which they speak, in this case, internationalization. A discourse model of the internationalization process, our model, is grounded in dialectical theory. Dialectical theory can complement traditional life cycle and teleological approaches, for instance, Johansen and Valny, because dialectical theory allows for the study of interactions between multiple organizations, whereas Johansen and Valny's theory does not. There are four guiding assumptions of our model. First is that the social reality that emerges from discourse is not a fixed state, but a dynamic process. Discourse analysis involves the search for holistic rather than linear explanations, and it must link process analysis to the location and explanation of internationalization. And finally, questions surrounding internationalization should be framed in the language of becoming rather than being. There are two interrelated levels of our model. One is surface level of communication actions, and below that is deeper level structures that are relatively stable, largely implicit, and continually recurring processes. These guide surface level communication. So meaning making and intertextuality. There are three distinct elements in the process of meaning making: the production of a text, the dissemination of that text, and the reception of the text. So think of text as being something written or something vocalized. However, it's important that the interplay between those, or intertextuality, leads to meaning and outcome. And intertextuality of a text is the presence within it of other texts and other voices. So our model involves a dynamic process in an environment, an external environment characterized by consensus, dialogue is the absence of consensus, and the convergence of positions leading to the deployment of power in the face of resistance. This is figure 1, our discourse-based model of internationalization. We begin over here with the contextual level, and this is 2 levels, the external environment, the political or socioeconomic, where an organization can look for international solutions to internal or firm level problems. These lead to 2 informational texts. One reporting changes in the external environment, and a second informational text identifying challenges or opportunities inside the firm. Right here, we have consensus that everything's fine. Dialogue or intertextuality means the lack of consensus, and this attempts to link the context of socio-economic and political with internal questions. This leads to the accumulation of knowledge and power, and that can lead to a power-infused text when someone formulates and distributes an international solution to an organizational problem. So dialogue is opposite of consensus. Now the organization is thinking about internationalization. Sometimes resistance can come into play insofar as organizational actors will argue for the status quo. Somebody's going to come out ahead in this argument, and this can lead to a dominant text that could be, yes, we're going to internationalize. No, we're not going to internationalize. 3, we're going to internationalize in some different form. Deep level structures could be impacted if the change from a strictly domestic operation leads to a more globally oriented operation. In our paper, we now have the Google example. In the forthcoming Gibbs paper, we've incorporated a Bulova internationalization, Bulova watches. So if deep level structures are impacted strongly, it could lead to a realignment. But the whole idea is this model moves from misalignment back to realignment. And then the final outcome is that there is either no or limited performativity, internationalization, or there is an international action. What did we find? Dialectical theory and discourse methods can strengthen and complement internationalization process theory to reveal before unseen underlying processes and deep level structures. Whereas Hansen and Valney did not emphasize the decision maker or decision context, we argue that it is imperative to understand the sociopolitical and economic environment in which an organization is embedded. This is because in our conceptualization, the decision process itself is the unit of analysis. So we respond to the incomplete scope of IPT, and namely IPT's treatment of experience as a proxy for knowledge and a generic quality comparable across firms. We reframe this argument and assumptions about knowledge and learning as dialogically constructed. So we enable the IB field to develop an understanding of knowledge creation that is socially constructed or dynamic rather than cognitively understood or static. So our model is best seen as a complement, not a substitute for other theories of internationalization. We critique our model based on Thorngate's postulate of commensurate complexity, which suggests that a theory of social behavior cannot be simultaneously general, accurate, and simple. Our model can lead to a more accurate explanation of the origin and processes of internationalization, but the trade-off is the loss of simplicity. Thank you for your attention.